Inflection Games have just released their 0.2 update for Nightingale, and this one is a massive update with a whole host of improvements, fixes, and community requests. Now, the game launched back in February, and it had a mixed reception. It still is currently sitting at mixed reviews on Steam, with just 62% of the 590 reviews in the last 30 days being positive. Which is a massive shame, because overall the game is loads of fun, really enjoyable, and there's loads of good stuff you can do. The downside I think a lot of people were complaining about is obviously it being an online game when it can be played as a single solo survival experience. And I completely understand that. There were a few other little issues as well, such as the crafting seemed very long-winded and it was quite difficult to do at some points, especially if you hadn't been playing it for a while. I was part of the playtest, so I understood a lot of the crafting mechanics already when the game launched, which I think made it a much better experience for me over players that were just jumping in and getting a little bit confused and not so much enjoying the longer-winded aspects of the game. Now, I did enjoy those longer-winded aspects, but with 0.2, this update adds a whole host of things that make things a little bit smoother and more enjoyable to play for an average survival player that isn't into that more complex system. Now, if you are a fan of Nightingale and other survival games, subscribe to the channel, drop a like on the video, and stick around for much more survival content. If you're a fan of Bethesda titles, make sure you check out the second channel, Space Cowboy, because we cover a load of Bethesda stuff there. And on the 25th, with Fallout's next gen update, we're going to be going hard on a load of Fallout content as well. Now, for Nightingale's 0.2 changelog, as mentioned, loads of really good features were added that really enhance that gameplay and make it a hell of a lot smoother. Now, everything is still online. They haven't added an offline version just yet, so that is something that they are working on, though, that will be coming relatively soon. Now, I think a decent chunk of the negative feedback that they received is fixed in this update with their community requests, such as things like queued crafting, which was something I found really frustrating. You couldn't just set your crafting bench up to do a load of tasks and then go away and do your thing and come back to a bunch of ready-made stuff. And when the crafting was taking so long for certain items, it was a bit of a pain in the ass because you couldn't really go too far from your base, but you didn't really have much to do around it if you were only crafting a certain item. So having queued crafting is really good, as well as crafting from the storage bins. Now, at first, there is an absolutely monumental amount of items that you need to craft various things in the game, which is very confusing and it takes up a lot of inventory and storage space. Now, them adding the crafting from storage element really fine-tunes things, makes things a hell of a lot smoother and quicker in that crafting process. So queued crafting is definitely something that was needed for that, because if you can craft everything from storage, you're not spending so much time putting all of the stuff that you got to craft the first item back into your storage. Now everything can be done just from the benches, which is a great feature. They've also added loads of UI improvements and a bunch of new weapons. Alongside that, they've changed existing weapon and tools. They've also added a universal dodge, as well as 2 new enemy types, 2 new bounds, which change the existing Lantern Head and the Bombardier bound. So overall, we've pretty much got 4 new enemies. The Lantern Head and the Bombardier bound have both been changed, and there's 2 additional guys as well. Alongside that, there's new NPCs as well as updated and brand new quest lines. There's also been a really good one that has come in to the NPCs, and that is the trader NPCs. So those guys are already in the game, but to go and purchase things from them, you actually had to visit their location every single time you wanted to buy something. And if it was across various realms, then that made it really difficult to do so. But now, what you'll be able to do is visit that trader once, and then if you don't have to go back to that realm again, you don't need to, because you can now purchase things from the traders through your guidebook after your first initial visit to the traders. As well as that, there's been massive adjustments to resource, clothing and weapon attributes, and a whole host of performance fixes. Now, another item is the combat. That was something that a lot of players had a bit of an issue with, but now with the 0.2 update, they've also added loads of different changes to that to make it a little bit more fluid and make things feel a little bit more engaging. So new weapons have been added to early game, the blunderbuss, the sheath of throwing knives, and a grenade satchel. As well as that, they've added a universal dodge, which has made changes to the default keybinds, so I'd recommend checking your keybinds when you jump back into a game after this update. They've also added new boomerang special attack for sickles, new parry attacks for the hunting knife, and a flurry special attack for hammers. So for building and crafting, they've made a few changes there. Obviously the two major ones at the start that I mentioned, that you can now stack your crafting and you can now craft from your storage. As well as that, they've tweaked a lot of costs to certain items, especially in the building. So if you are building larger structures, things will now be a lot quicker and cheaper when it comes to the resources used in that building aspect. And then for crafting, obviously craft from storage and the crafting queues to all crafting stations. Now also when you craft unique weapons and tools using unique resources, so any resources that do have attributes attached to them, the weapons and tools will now also inherit those attributes. So that makes it a lot easier to carry over those special effects and attributes from certain crafting items, rather than losing them when you crafted things. There's also various other updates, including loads of fixes and improvements for resources, the UI, and a load of patch fixes that do improve gameplay and performance, as well as some quest locking bugs have now been removed as well, which is great news, and a whole host of bug fixing and polish to progression blockers, art, sound effects, building, economy, NPCs, characters. Loads and loads of stuff has been built upon and improved for this update. So this update is definitely the biggest and best one that we've seen to date. I do hope that this does a little something when it comes to the player base and adds a few extra players. They did have a relatively decent launch, and it is a shame that certain things did hold it back. I do understand the gripe with a few of the items, but I do think overall the game was loads of fun, and it was... I say it was easy to get along with, but I do think obviously I have a bias for that because I was playing it for quite a bit in advance, so I did understand. But when I did first start playing, yes, it was relatively complicated, but a few things changed along the way and did make things a lot easier than what they were originally. But hopefully Nightingale does continue to add updates like this, and players continue to come back and check it out with each and every update to have a nice, flourishing, continual, decent player count. But what do you guys think? Did you play Nightingale? Did you enjoy it? Did you have fun? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. For now though, we are going to wrap that one up there. I've been Wad. You guys have been awesome. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.